Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm taking a look at another retro handheld. This is another in the Anbernic 35XX family of handhelds. Now, Anbernic has been releasing a lot of these devices over the last few months, and it's getting a little hard to keep up with these releases. Anyway, this one is the RG35XX SP. So as the name implies, this is very similar to the recent RG35XX Plus and the RG35XX they released recently. It has the same exact internals as those, except in this new GBA SP-like design. I think this is one of these handhelds that brings in a whole new wave of people into the retro handheld space, like the original 35XX, the Mio Mini and Mini Plus, and the RGB30 did last year. It just hits that perfect price point, and the whole GBA SP inspiration is done just right. In the short time I've had this, I've had a few people ask me if this is a GBA SP. So not only is it inspired and intentionally inspired by the GBA, but it's nearly indistinguishable at a glance. So thanks for joining me for this review, and let's take a closer look at this new hardware and see if this is the right retro handheld for you. So from purchase to delivery, this one took about 8 days to get to me in Ontario, Canada, which is a bit quicker than what I've experienced before. The unboxing experience is pretty standard for Anbernic. In the box, we have the RG35XX SP handheld. We also have some cleaning wipes, some documentation, and a screen protector. And of course, a USB-C to A charging cable. I picked this one up in the classic DMG gray color, but it is also available in a transparent blue and black, as well as a silver. Now, I think that the metallic silver color was the only color that the original GBA SP came in. So I would go with that color if you wanted something a bit closer to the original. So a quick tour of the device. On the left, you have a power and reset button. On the right, we have a volume up and down rocker. On the bottom, we have a headphone jack and 2 micro SD card slots. You can use one primarily for the OS and the other one for your ROMs. On the top, you have your L and R shoulder buttons, as well as a USB-C port for charging and accessories. And you also have a mini HDMI port if you want to connect this up to an external monitor. At the bottom, you have a panel which gives you access to the battery in case you need to replace it. And finally, at the top, you have a nice clean surface, which is just begging for some custom stickers and decals. So first impressions of this is that the plastic chosen here, it's nice. It feels good, feels high quality. There's almost a subtle grit to it, which I think will help with fingerprints overall. The hinge itself feels really good. It only snaps to one location. So you can see here that it's smooth all the way through, and it snaps at this point. You can push it a little further, but there's no snap. It just snaps back to this one angle, and the angle itself feels good. It's a good choice. The other thing I wanted to look at was, the durability of this. It's hard to say at this point, but it does feel very similar to what Nintendo did. So I would guess, unless this is a much cheaper plastic, it would last a similar amount of time. The other thing I will want to take a look at here is the buttons. Now, the D-pad itself here, it doesn't have much travel to it, and it is loud. It's not only the D-pad, everything is loud. All the buttons. There's just a loud click, audible click, every time you press something. And there's a lot of rattle. I've heard that this thing was loud, but it's something else to actually play with it, and everything is just audible when you move it around, when you click it. It just makes a lot of sounds, which actually I think it detracts from the overall quality of the device, which overall looks really good. Just that some of these sounds coming out from the D-pads, the buttons, overall, and just the overall sounds this thing makes does take away from the impression of the quality overall. Apart from that, though, the look of the device, it's pretty good, and I'm very impressed. So as I mentioned before, this is the same specs as the 35XX Plus. That means we also have an Allwinner 8700 processor in here with 1GB of RAM. We have the same 3.5-inch IPS panel, as well as a 3300 mAh battery, which should get you about 7 hours of gameplay. It also has built-in Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, but the Bluetooth is only for controller support. And all of this will cost you a grand total of $65, but that's not including shipping and taxes. So the overall dimensions of the device is 28 by 89 by 87 millimeters. Comes in about 200 grams as well. That makes it slightly heavier than its competition, but overall, size-wise, it feels smaller. And even when I compare it to some of the more micro handhelds that I have, like the GKD Pixel and the Mio Mini, it is not too bad. It's not much bigger than those, while providing a much more comfortable gaming experience overall. That's mostly due to the clamshell design. The clamshell design also has a few benefits, I guess, in that it has a built-in screen protector, so you don't really have to worry about throwing this in a pocket or a backpack and worry about scratching up the screen. You will probably scratch up the surface of the device, but if you don't care about that too much, then the gaming experience will be flawless. Here we have a 3.5-inch IPS display on the SP, and it is a good one. I am fairly certain this is the same screen we have seen in the RG35XX Plus and the H, and possibly even some of the Mio Mini Plus devices. Compared to many other handhelds in the SP price bracket, the SP's display is at least on par with, if not better than most of them, really only being outshined by the RGB30. The quality is quite impressive, offering good brightness and color. Pixel art games look really crisp and vibrant, and really this is where this handheld shines, with the 8 and 16-bit generation of gaming. When you're emulating games from the Genesis, the Super NES, the Game Boy, the Game Gear, and especially the GBA, they look exceptional on here. Some of the additional attention to detail of the custom borders and overlays when using RetroArch emulator are really well implemented. For instance, take a look at the GBA games running at 3:2 aspect ratio or Pico 8 games running at 1:1 aspect ratio. The custom overlays are tastefully done and really well implemented. When it comes to brightness, you have a nice range here. It gets bright enough to allow you to play during the day as long as it isn't in direct sunlight, and gets dim enough for nighttime gaming as well. Compared to some of its direct competitors and some of the more pricier handhelds, it is a quite impressive showing. No light bleeding, great colors, just solid all around. Overall, the screen quality is top-notch for retro gaming, punching far above its weight and price point. One of the biggest negatives for me of the RG35XX SP are the controls and buttons. The buttons are clicky and loud, which for me eliminates it as a device I can play at bedtime. If you're like me and get in a few minutes of gameplay before bed next to your spouse, and you would like to remain in a relationship, I would suggest getting a different device. If this isn't a potential problem for you, then this clickiness is actually satisfying and enjoyable, and overall the controls themselves are really accurate. The D-pad and buttons do not have much in terms of travel, but during play sessions they feel precise, which is crucial for platformers and fighting games. So playing through fighting games like Street Fighter and getting the fireballs and dragon punches out on these controls feel great. Also, playing any of your platformers that require a bit of accuracy feels good and works really well on here. So definitely some mixed feelings on this one. On one hand, I think the controls are some of the best Anbernic has made, but on the other, the loud, clicky buttons are a huge negative. The last thing I want to mention is that unlike the RG35XX and some other devices with a similar price point, there are no analog sticks in here, which makes this device not ideal for games that heavily rely on them. While there is enough power in here to play N64, Dreamcast, and DS games, the lack of any analog sticks does not make this device ideal for emulating these retro systems. Performance is key for handheld gaming, and we've seen what this processor is capable of before. On the high end, we are looking at PS1, N64, DS, Dreamcast, and even some light PSP. The RG35XX SP is equipped with an all-winner H700 processor, so the limiting factor for most of these is the physical hardware. If you are only concerned about the 8 and 16-bit generation of gaming, then you will have no issues playing nearly every game on here. Some PSP games will be playable, but playing a widescreen system on a 4:3 aspect ratio screen is not ideal. The DS will be limited by the device's screen as well. It is possible to switch between the two screens, but this only works on a handful of games that only require one screen at a time. The SP, like many popular devices in its price range, has a single front-facing speaker, which sounds great to me as long as you're not using it at full volume. Have a listen and compare it to the Mio Mini Plus and make a judgment for yourself. So Anbernic has been releasing roughly the same hardware now in different form factors for the last few months. What's great about that is in doing so, they have been iterating on the stock firmware with each release. I think the stock firmware has gotten to a point where most will be happy with it and not necessarily needing to switch to any custom firmwares available. If you want to try some of these out, some of the more popular ones are MIUI, MinUI, my personal favorite, and Cannoli. Now, I personally like MinUI for its simplicity, but I encourage you to give all of these a shot and see which one works best for you. With that said, if you stick to the stock firmware that the device ships with, you will be just fine as long as you figure out some of the weird quirks. Some quick tips: use the RA menu, not the Game Rooms menu, to play your games. The experience with RetroArch is just much better in my opinion. If you are playing DS games, use the shoulder buttons to switch screens, and pressing the power button will toggle the virtual touchpad on and off. Also, using the power button in N64 games will toggle between the D-pad and analog sticks. So what's the final verdict on the RG35XX SP? For around $80, this device is a fantastic value for retro gamers. It offers a mix of nostalgia and modern features. If you like the look of the original GBA SP or wanting to replay some of the classics on a gaming handheld, then you can't go wrong picking one of these up. My biggest gripes were the obnoxiously loud controls and quirkiness with the stock firmware, both of which are not deal breakers considering the value you're getting here. So what do you think of the SP? Are you planning on picking one up, or do you already have one in hand? Let me know in the comments below what you think or which other device you're planning on picking up. If you stuck around this long, please give me a like and sub. It helps the channel grow, and it's a small way to say thanks if you found any value from this video. Thanks again, thanks for watching, and I will catch you in the next video.